I don't have much for y'all because we're waiting for our budget to go before the county commission. End of this month, it was approved by our board on the 2nd of May. Nothing's changed since our last update. We're looking at a proposed 4.4 draw from, and we realize the same expenditures and revenue increases that we propose. I think we're looking at $1.5 million realistic draw, if on the worst side, on the worst case side. So again, factoring on a less than what we did property tax rate and all of those things considered, and overestimating expenditures and underestimating revenues, that's where we're at. But we do feel good about it. We were able to meet the state minimum instructional rate of pay. And as you know, that's increasing from last year to 2026 to a minimum of $50,000 a year for starting teachers. So we have to increase that a little bit at a time. For us, it was $2,000 last year, $2,500 for each step this year, $2,500 next year, and then I think $3,000 the final year. What people don't realize is that money does come from the state, but that state money only covers 70%. That first year of the $2,000 per step, it covered about 68% of this year's step increase, and that continues to dwindle. So that does impact our proposed red amount, so to speak, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. We're going to maintain that. We also factored in the cost of living / inflation help to every other employee group, but the overall average percentage was about 1.5%. So we did factor that in. In subsequent years, if nothing changes, we may not even be able to do that. The problem with proceeding forward under those type of situations are that we don't want just one group of our employees to get a bump. And that's hard to explain to our employees. So, but we do feel pretty good about that.
So how long is this grant for?
The grant for
the salary increases?
That goes through the 25-26 school year.
So then you all have to sustain it after that. Everything's good.
That amount is added to the base. So the 2,000 per step, 70% of it last year was added to our base. That continues on. But the important thing to remember, and that's a great question, is that it didn't cover 30% of the first year, it didn't cover 32% of the second year, and on and on. So we're responsible for those percentages that didn't cover ongoing. So that adds up pretty quick. There were staff reductions through attrition, kind of turned into our conversation prior to the meeting a little bit ago. When we have retirees and we have people leaving, we look at every position to make sure that we have to backfill them, and where we can save a position, we save those positions. And we've done a pretty good job this year, and we'll continue to look at that as we look at roll-up enrollments and staffing as we go through the summer.
You know, how many of y'all have leave? How many leaves?
So far, we're about 18 or 19 resignations, and we have 26 retirements. So we're 40 plus right now that we're recruiting for. And there are a couple of those positions we aren't filling right away. So let's say the number's 45, we may be closer to 42, 41 that we're actually recruiting for. Last year, I think I reported to this committee, about midway through the year, we hit our 100 certificated hire. Out of 500 teachers, roughly, we're 499, 501, depending on the year. We hit 100 teachers hired last year by the midway point. So that's a fifth of our teaching staff. I don't see that continuing. We had a number of retirements, and we had it was an abnormal year, and I don't really know. There are more and more teachers, believe it or not, younger teachers that when they leave us or leave teaching, they leave teaching altogether. So we're seeing some people, I think young people that go into education preparation programs at universities, they get through, they get their first classroom, and it's not for me.
Right.
So we are seeing more of those, but it's a small amount.
What do you think with his salary increases, it's gonna be easier to recruit people? Are we getting close to being with the surrounding area?
Yeah, I think, the problem is every school system gets the same amount.
Yeah.
So we're never really closing the gap with some of the city systems and some of the others. But for our cost of living and for the expenditures in our county, we're now paying pretty well if you consider the cost of living versus living in the Tri-Cities or maybe Morristown, Hamlin area. So that does help. Although we're not closing that salary gap, people do consider cost of living when they say, hey, if I can, my $50,000 goes a lot further in Hawkins County than it does elsewhere. So that does benefit us.
Of the people that's resigning, is there a predominant reason that they're leaving?
Yeah, we typically see year 5 and 6 teachers leave. There's a pretty significant bump in pay with city systems in the Tri-Cities area. We lose a lot to Johnson City, we lose a lot to Kingsport City. We don't lose many to Sullivan County. We don't lose many to Hamlin County. It's primarily the city systems that have higher local revenues coming in and can supplement those salaries. The other end of the spectrum, and that's a good question. We see year 5, 6 teachers leave, and then we typically see those that are about 4 to 5 years out from retirement because they can go, and if they're making 10 grand a year more, the last 5 years of education of their career, then their retirement helps quite a bit. But I will say I've been pleasantly surprised by those that have made a decision to come to Hawkins and stayed. We have a number of employees that are 20 plus, 18 plus, 30 plus that have dedicated their service to Hawkins County, and that's commendable. Where we can't make up with pay, we try to make up with support and as many resources as we can inside the classrooms and training, professional development, that type of thing. We continue to prioritize through the board's leading a pretty aggressive health benefits package. We cover 76% on the employer side paid benefits, and the employee is responsible for 24%. So that's pretty aggressive with surrounding areas. There may be a school system here and there, I believe Hamlin's one of them, that will allow a single payer 100% paid benefits. But then when you get to the spouse plus one or the families, we're very, very competitive, if not 2 or 3 from the top. So that's helped us with our employees that have families. On the flip side of that, it's very costly.
Yeah.
The other sheet, think about that if you have any questions on our overall budget for next year. I'll entertain any of those, but this is the amendments that are being proposed for this evening. I handed you a corrected form. We found a couple of updates. We had to update through the summer grants, and one of those is on the last page. It's under slice, under 17. That's a grant through ETSU that we're actually managing for ETSU, and we get a lot of benefit from that. We had to move 3,000 over to help cover stipends for this summer. And then if you look up, there was an instructional supply adjustment of 2,000 in number 14, and we highlighted those. So the board will be getting this corrected one this evening. They got it via email earlier, but that is corrected. Other than that, it's standard end of year adjustments. There's a paid parental leave reimbursement from the state that we're getting back in. If you remember, So if I'm a father of an infant that was born within the last school year, I can apply through the state to get an additional 6 weeks of paid parental leave as a dad. The mom can do the same, and they can alternate, and it can be floating throughout the year. So if I want to take every Friday for the next several months, I can do that.
And the state pays that?
And the state reimburses. So
Oh,
they have to pay
reimburses.
up front, and then it's reimbursed, and that's what that reimbursement
Okay.
for.
Is that education only or anybody?
You want a job with the school
So that
system?
is for our teaching staff.
Okay.
It says educators. Yeah, it was
Okay.
an educator paid parental leave act passed last year. Was last year? Yeah.
Doesn't count for dogs though, probably.
No. It does count for adoption, and even if you're, unfortunately, if you're in a position where you give birth and the infant dies, it still qualifies. It's really aimed to help protect the ability for one or both parents to stay an additional amount of time with their child, and in that case, to grieve, I guess. So the governor signed that last year and we implemented this year, and those are the reimbursements we're starting to see come in for that. We've had a number of staff members avail themselves of that. And then a lot of the others are grant adjustments, grants, totals coming in, percentages of those grants being realized and coming in and being applied to those accounts there. See that school health grant, safe grant, the mini grants and U Trust, a lot of other things there. So if you have any questions now or after the meeting or in between us and the commission meeting, by all means, let me know, please.
Next regular meeting would be July the 4th, right? Are you going-
We're dark on July 4th.
Okay.
We're dark in July right
Okay.
now. There is talk that we may need to bring back, there may need to be a maintenance and facility update. There may be some things that are coming from CT that we need to address before August, so we may hold a special, but right now we're planning to be dark in July. The other exception is if the commission
If the
doesn't
budget
approve the
doesn't
budget,
go.
then
Right.
we'll obviously have to come back.
And we'll talk about, if the budget's approved, go back to quarterly meetings
Until the next budget.
Yeah, yes, that's a good reminder, thank you. Yeah, I think Melissa and I met this morning, we're gonna meet weekly just to really keep an eye on budget and looking forward to next budget. And if we're gonna stay on the same timeline, we may get with the board a couple weeks before that first budget workshop to get priorities and stuff. So I think us, this group meeting, the quarterly meeting would be perfect.
Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed we can get everything approved beforehand.
Yeah.
Might not happen.
Okay. All right.
Matt,
We'll roll with it, whatever happens.
would you have time to maybe run some numbers on your graduation rates and what's those numbers? Do they go up or down? Or
We do get that. We typically don't receive the official number. We have rough calculations, but we wait for that state approval as official. And we typically get that first part of August. But as soon as I get it, I don't mind passing it out to the school as soon as we get it. We'll be in the 95% plus at both schools.
is there someone that oversees that?
Thomas Floyd is the contact person for getting that guide rate back from the state. So as soon as he sees it pop up and as soon as it's unencumbered, which means we can release it to the public, I can pass it on. We were at 98 and 96, and I think the state rate was 94, 93, 94. Yeah.
Always watch it.
Roger, was I close on that?
I missed part of that.
Grad rate last year?
Yes.
93 was state average, and we were 96, 98 between the two schools. Okay. We're still holding our own there. We're looking at some schedule changes that will offer some students more within CCD, even more so than what we're doing now. So we're pretty excited about the year coming up and the opportunity we'll have to choose.
So speaking of that, where we at on the deal on the
So the architect met with Dr. Williams. I met with him yesterday. He met with the architect at the end of last week, and we are ready to bid Lynch expansion, new development there. The addition to Cherokee and the addition to Volunteer will go as one package to the county for bid, and then it'll be ran in the paper, all that stuff. Hopefully by next week, and then by the end of June, should have that back and be able to, Brandon was hoping to be able to award that to the board and then move forward first part of July with a shovel in the ground, probably August. We're still doing plans first.
Well, you said all three are bid together?
Yeah, no one bid on the separate clinch project several months ago. We were hoping to get that started. No one bid. So the architect said, let's bring it back and let's package those three jobs and get somebody that's interested in tackling and doing work because income. Hopefully we'll get some extra parts. Clinch will have a separate fully functional CPE facility for the first time. They had to do classrooms and stuff before, wheel the welders outside and put the strings up around the welders and weld outside and deal with the wind and stuff. Now they'll have a separate facility and it'll be nice. Yeah, that's a good update. I forgot. I haven't updated you all on that in a while, but we didn't get any bids and sent it to the Clinch out. So.
I forgot what the titles were, but it's a graduation coach or at both high schools that was grant funded.
Yeah, so
we find positions for those two both.
So one of them is probably going back to the truancy officer position that she previously held, and the other individual, we're working on a job description, and she possibly will be split between both high schools for at-risk juniors and seniors that don't have a career college plan. So she'll be doing similar work, but we're looking at titling it student intervention support.
That's good.
Yeah, SIX. So, and she's working with Thomas to redo that job description and make it. So we had to save a little bit of money, losing all that funding. So it'll be real creative, real quick. But it looks like it's moving forward.
Now, that would be contracted service,
It'll be a Hawkins County employee. Yeah, she'll work for us, and so will the church officer. And unfortunately, I'm looking back at Robin, we've got more than enough work for our third truancy officer. They were, the two that were working it this year worked themselves to death, and I think still didn't didn't make contact with every single student on those lists. Just went with the highest priorities down. So. But that'll be good, and both of them have landing spots and should be good to move forward.
So how was your ACT scores? I noticed that they drop everywhere. So how are we holding up?
That's in line with our grad rate. We don't get that back officially until end of July, 1st of August. So I'll add that to the list to grad rate. We actually are looking at an increase. We set our internal goal of nearly 22% to score. Sorry, 22.
We met that before the pandemic.
We did. We were just meeting that and just over, depending on which school you're looking at. But when it dipped coming out of the pandemic, when we closed school that spring, it came back that fall, and we didn't see those trickle back up until last year. So we're hoping, and we anticipate that being in the low 20s or high teens on our way back to where we were. The classes that hurt us the worst were basically those that were in Algebra 1 had their year cut short, had to come back and finish Algebra 1 semester, and then jump into geometry and then Algebra 2 as they were testing because they were. So that set us up for failure there that first year. And I don't know why we've asked numerous times why the state has the math pathway of algebra 1, geometry, and then algebra 2. We're asking if we can switch that. Algebra 1, algebra 2, knock those out, and then move to geometry. And those that want advanced math can move those from that point. So
That's the sequence when I was in school. Algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2.
yeah.
That's next.
And there's students that typically do better in one versus the other, but not a whole lot that do well in both. It's weird, so. And ACT's heavily weighted toward the algebra side.
Well, if anybody else got any other questions?
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Anytime.